Aloha, everybody. Hi. Nice to see you in person. I'm Elaine. I live on Maui. I live in Kula. Apparently the fire is out. We're hoping so. Yeah, so it's okay, but thank you for coming today and thank you everybody who is joining online. And I believe I have quorum because I have 1, 2, 3, and I think I have Joni and Soma. So I believe we have, yeah, Soma is here. Hi, Soma.
Part of your forum too. I'm Phil Bossert. So.
Yeah, hi Phil. Yeah, you're one of our ex officio members. So I was trying to count the voting members. So yeah, thank you. So this is a new board, new voting member board. There are those of you that have been part of the early learning board for a long time as ex officio members. And we'll continue, yeah. And this new board has geographic representation, so on Maui, and we have Joni on Big Island, and we have Alana on Kauai, but she's not feeling well today. And then we have 3 Honolulu city and county members, but one of those seats is vacant. So one of my jobs is to kind of follow up on how we get that seat filled. And then we have 3 at-large seats. Okay, so because it's a new board, because I'm a new chair, because as you all know, Bob has done it forever and forever. Thank you, Bob. And I'm realizing how much work Bob had to do. So I really appreciate everybody's presence and your patience as we kind of get going. Because I don't know all of you, I know the board members. Oh, Lindsay. Okay, so I do have clients. So I got, yes. Why don't, before I kind of get into the agenda, can people who are non-board members, can you introduce yourself, or, you know, your board member, your position? Yeah, just introduce yourself. So,
So I'm Phil Bossert. I'm Executive Director of Hawaii Association of Independent Schools.
thank
And
you.
I'm not near as smart or experienced as Bob. So
Thank you for coming. I really appreciate your presence. So I would like to know who is around here. So how about you?
Okay, my name is Ethan Schwab. I'm the new Head Start Office of Collaboration Director. So I'm glad to be with you guys today.
What was your first name?
Ephraim.
Ephraim.
Yes. If you have
Oh,
any questions, ask me. I can tell you more about myself later.
okay, thank you. Oh, great to meet you.
I am very well. My name is Kiyomi. I'm an assistant college of education.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Wendy Nakasone Kalani. I'm from Army Child and Youth Services. I'm their special needs program manager. I'm Tara Castro-Vinci. I'm the communication specialist at ELB.
Hi, aloha. I'm Hako Deguchi. I'm institutional analyst at ELB.
I'm Mitsuchi Owens.
I'm Smith Hawks, and I'm the president of KCA Preschools and also the liaison.
And hosting us in the
and
season.
hosting.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Rodina for city.
Great, thank you, everybody. So, and we have people online. I see Keiko. Well, Yuko is also online, and Soma is a board member. Thank you for making it, Soma. And Dana is here from DHS. I see Chris Al. Ronald Rodriguez is online. He is our Deputy Attorney General. So he'll let us know if I'm getting out of line or am in line. And Charisse Sol is from P20, P3. And I see Chris Jackson from who used to work for EOEL. He used to be the Head Start Collaboration. Lauren Podesky is with DOE, correct? And let's see. Happy Ulani. was on the board, right? And Angela Miyashiro. Hi, Angela. I'm not sure, you guys know who Angela? No? I see Vivian, Tara. Thank you. Do we see, and, oh, we got plenty of people. Okay, so anyway, let me keep going. We are going to trying to move my, okay, here we go. So welcome, and Joni, are you online? Did you guys see Joni?
Yes, I'm online.
Okay, thank you, Joni. Can you read our mission for us?
Okay, the Early Learning Board mission to support children's academic and lifelong well-being by directing and supporting the EOEL for an effective, coordinated, high-quality early learning system from prenatal to kindergarten entry.
Hey, mahalo, Joni, and Joni is our representative from the Big Island. So we do have a quorum, so hopefully we can get to our votes. I might move things around because I know Joni has to leave at 3. So everybody else is staying though, right? Okay, so we're okay even if Joni leaves because we still will have quorum. Okay, let me go to the next thing. So next is the review of the minutes from June. When was it? June 13th. And I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes and then seconded, we can discuss. Will somebody move?
I move to accept.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I second.
Thank you. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the minutes from June 13th? And thank you very much to Tara for taking minutes. Any corrections? Anything in the chat? Nothing in the chat. Okay. So hearing none, I'm gonna call a roll call vote. Bob was an ex officio member, so he called the roll and did not vote. Most of the time, I will not vote. I am a voting member, but being chair, most of the time I will not vote unless it's needed to break a tie or to make quorum. So I will be calling you on by name to for your vote on the minutes. So Kawi.
Aye.
Hello, Cheryl.
Aye.
Soma.
Aye.
Lindsay.
Aye.
Joni
Aye.
and Stephanie. And Elaine, aye. Okay, so let's go on. Kawi, I have you on next.
Okay. All right, aloha kākou, Cody Burgess here, at-large member. I attended the Hawaii Careers with Young Children's Early Childhood Education Workforce Symposium, along with Director Arcel Cross, ELB Chair Yamashita. And I don't know, was anyone else there that you folks know of? I didn't see it. I don't recall anyone. Yes. Oh, Rose Hill was, Napua Rose Hill was there.
Yeah, Napua is on her way. Yeah.
She's here today. I
She
mean-
was coming, she said
Okay,
she's
okay.
15
So
minutes.
she was there. I don't recall anyone else. So I'm providing the report and I'd like to thank Alana Bowman for reporting for our last Hawaii DOE conference. So this symposium was held on Saturday morning, July 29th, and it was hosted by the Hawaii Early Childhood Educator Excellence and Equity Project, or ECE3, through the University of Hawaii at Manoa College. of education. The objectives of the symposium were to, one, learn about the power of supporting early educators as leaders and as agents of change. And then two, examine how we, the state of Hawaii, can cultivate this leadership in our state as we continue to advance the ECE profession and improve quality programs and services. And then third, the third objective was to develop an action plan on how to cultivate ECE leadership in Hawaii. The event was super engaging. I really enjoyed it. The guest speaker, Dr. Ann Douglas, actually led conversations at each table. There were about, what, maybe 250 people in attendance, approximately.
No, it actually was like 100.
What? I
Yeah,
counted like 25 tables. Oh, but then there were only like
8%.
8
Yeah,
to
yeah,
6
yeah,
on the
yeah.
table.
Right,
That's right, that's
right.
right. So what, about 100?
Yeah, a little over 100.
Okay, so, the conversations, excuse me, the presenter led tabletop conversations for each group. So everyone had tabletop conversations. And I'll go into a little bit more about that. Well, one of the most interesting questions was, if you could ensure that something would happen in the state of Hawaii, what would you do? If you could make sure something happens for early learning in the state of Hawaii, what is it that you would push for? What would you do? I can't remember the exact question, but that was the essence of it. And it ended up being a really great conversation. Then they had invited speakers. Well, they invited Lieutenant Governor Sylvia Luke to speak, and she came and spoke to us about the Ready Keiki initiative, which she leads. And in her 15-minute speech, she ended with a challenge to the attendees, stating, actually, she challenged the audience to look for areas that the state can improve on in early learning. So that was great, to look for areas and then also to inform us. I guess this board would be one body to do that, herself. And then Nathan Morata, the Dean of UH's College of Education, also spoke, welcoming the people to the symposium. Terry Locke spoke. She came and shared about the attendance representation, the percentage of representation in the room. And that was super interesting too, to know that the highest attendance was 21.2% by the state and county agencies. And then nonprofits made up 20.2%, higher education made up 14.4%, ECE teachers made up 10.5%, and then others like FCC provider and Kamehameha Schools made up 4.8%, the two of them, and each. And then there were a few others. I have a list if anybody wants to know who else was there. She also spoke about the history of ECE in Hawaii. And then she introduced the guest speaker, Dr. Ann Douglas. The guest speaker's goal about the guest speaker, she had a 20-year career in, actually she had a former career in urban ECE. She worked for 20 years as a teacher, administrator, family child care owner, educator, and quality improvement coach in Boston's underserved neighborhoods. So it was a super good presentation by her. Her goal for the day of this, for the symposium, was to ensure that the attendees gained at least one idea that would be concrete for each of us to think about and to possibly act on after the symposium. She authored the book titled Leading for Change and Unifying Framework. And then Chair, can you confirm I grasped a little bit of it. I think she said that it was used to support the ongoing adoption of the implementation and unifying framework in Hawaii.
We
Is
are
that-
working on
working on it. So,
Yes.
but using the concepts from the book.
Yes.
Okay. So the book again is called Leading for Change and Unifying Framework.
Yeah, unifying framework actually is a different document. That's the one that's talking about a consistent national vision for early childhood education across the nation. But yes, leading for change in early care and education is the name of the. Yeah,
Thank you. Thanks for that.
sorry. It's
Good.
confusing.
My
It's
credit.
okay.
Mahalo. Okay, and then in closing, so after she spoke, the attendees were led through a gallery walk, which was super good, because the gallery walk provided insight into the different actions that are happening throughout Hawaii. So, for example, different things taking place in Hawaii with ECE and the workforce. So, for example, the Honolulu Community College's ECE pathways, including their new infant toddler caregiver certificate, was discussed there. They had a representative there talking about that. Keikioka Aina's ECE apprenticeship program, their training partnership with Hawaii Community College, Honolulu Community College. That combines on-the-job learning with related instructional hours. And what else? And there were a lot. There were about 9 poster boards up,
Yeah.
and I have a bunch listed here, and we can discuss later if anyone's interested. The Hawaii Association for the Education of Young Children had their public policy agenda listed, and they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 priorities listed. And then also UH's framework for early care and education practitioners. So Dr. Terry Locke was there explaining that. And then after that, within a week, maybe about 5 days after this symposium, UH Manoa emailed a survey to all attendees, asking questions, providing, asking for input so that people could help improve the next symposium. So, yeah. Anyway, that was it, and that's my 5-minute report. I think it's
Mahalo. But I think,
10.
yes, and mahalo for giving that report. I think it shows you the complexity of what we as a board need to bring an overall common vision and understanding to, because there are many, many moving pieces in this system. And I think the challenge for this, the board is to see how we move forward from here, because there are a lot of pieces have been put into place in place, but seeing it as coordinated maybe is the next step. Because a lot of the information was new, right, to you, and like for some of us, we kind of know that information, but for many people, it's new and it's a lot. It's really a lot. So I think as we move forward for the board, can you start? I would really appreciate your thinking, Emanao, on how we work together to fulfill our legislative mandate and create a coordinated system.
Yeah, so I wanted to mention, and I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, that our chair was a co-host for the event. And so she's very knowledgeable about what took place, but
And
Napua was
that's-
also there. Napua, did you have any thoughts you want to share, or Yuko? Anything of maybe that I
Yes,
might?
Echoing Chair Yamashita's mana'o on the complexity of the system, and I want to make an emphasis on really focusing on coordination, because that's going to be key in the future to come.
Oh, nice. So that's it, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll turn it over to, sorry, to Yuko now. Oops. Yeah. Oh, no, my report, sorry, excuse me. Hello, I see, I think I have things under control and then it's like, man. Okay, so Sunshine Law we are in compliance with Sunshine Law. So this is the first meeting I was invited to attend as the Early Learning Board Chair. So it was Lieutenant Governor Sylvia Luke's Ready Keiki meeting on June 27. So I attended via Zoom and I just observed because this was my first meeting and it was a big meeting. UCO folks were there. There are a lot of different players. And the main points that I wrote here were that there are new Ready Keiki classrooms opening this year. EOEL is now taking applications online as well as paper applications. Lieutenant Governor mentioned the increase in funding to Preschool Open Doors, which goes to DHS licensed preschool programs, the families. And because now the application period is open, it used to be families had to apply for Preschool Open Doors within this 1 month period. And so applications, not everybody can get it together. So families have a lot of things going on. So one of the things they did was to open it to a rolling application period. So that has really increased the number of applications and that's been effective. The School Facilities Authority, SFA, new staff, Ricky Fujitani was introduced, and Sherry Nakamura used to be with a nonprofit, and she's now a program officer there. And the ongoing challenge of not enough qualified staff for DHS licensed programs was clear. Programs across the state have closed classrooms due to lack of staff. So we have this, there are spaces, but because there are not enough qualified staff, programs don't have the capacity. So that is a dire need that we need to address, but figure out how the board can help support addressing and bringing up the workforce. Recruitment, retention, compensation, and benefits are a big part of that. It needs a plan. There's a group working on that, which is my next slide. And the Lieutenant Governor mentioned other initiatives, and there's a link on the EOEL website to Ready Keiki. So I need to let you know of my involvement in various groups. And because of my involvement in these groups, I wouldn't report on them. I would ask other people to report. And if there's a vote on anything that concerns one of these groups, of course, I would recuse myself. Most of the time, I won't be voting anyway. But Hawaii Careers with Young Children, HCYC, is a coalition of entities that has existed. It started like in the 90s as such career development coalition. And has been continued. So see, that's how long we've been working on this, really working on a professional development system. So this is one of the pieces we're working on. HCYC is working on a professional development system for DHS licensed programs and family childcare. So I am co-chair of what's called the Framework Work Group with Brenda Watanabe of Hawaii CC. There is a compensation design team, and I'm a member. This group is organized by Dr. Terry Locke and the ECE3 program. So that Terry's program has the grant that she has that established ECE3 got the RAND study to do the compensation study a couple of years ago. Okay, so that was a really key piece so that we have at least some baseline data from 2022 of salaries and working conditions in licensed programs. So that design team is working on a plan to increase compensation and benefits for early childhood educators in Hawaii, which will help us recruit and retain. early childhood educators. I am on the DHS Child Care Advisory Committee. I am a voting member and I represent Maui County. We haven't voted on anything for a long time. And what I do for, as a rep for Maui County is I have a mailing list of Maui County directors and family childcare providers that you can get from Patch. And I forward the notices about the Child Care Advisory Committee meetings to them and also forward the notes so that they are informed, because what happens in that committee often directly affects licensed programs because it is a licensing agency. I retired from UH Maui College in 2019. And so, and I taught in the early childhood education program. And so I continue to be on the advisory committee. So that meets just once a year. I am a professional development specialist, or PDS, which is an independent contractor for the Council for Professional Recognition, which grants the Child Development Associate credential. Okay, so I receive an honorarium when a candidate chooses me as a PDS. I go in and observe them for one morning. It's like a 4-hour commitment of observation and talking with the candidate and doing the paperwork before and after. And it's part of the process for people to get the Child Development Associate credential. And CDA kind of, they have talked about themselves in national meetings as the first best step. Because to get a CDA, you need 120 hours of training, which translates to about 8 hours of college credit, to 480 hours of experience. And then you have this observation, you have a portfolio, you have other pieces of it, family questionnaires. So anyway, it is a valuable credential. And because there has been an increase in candidates, I am doing that just so I can kind of keep my eye, it's kind of fun because I get to go into programs. I get to spend some time, I get to see what's happening. Like, nobody has sign-in sheets. Everybody has an app, right? And so, just really interesting. So those are the things I'm involved in, just so you know. And if you guys see that there might be a conflict of interest on my part, then please let me know. And I'm sure Ronald will let me know too. But if you guys see, please let me know. But I just want to let you know so that we're all aware and you can keep me in mind. Okay? Any questions? Anything in chat? No? Okay. Oh yeah, because I'm supposed to, excuse me. Okay, forgive me. This is my first meeting. After items, agenda items, I'm supposed to ask for public comment. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes if you're doing it at the meeting. The agenda had a procedure for submitting written comments on items. But let me ask if, because I didn't ask about Kaui's report, if there are any public comments about the early care, the workforce early care and education symposium. And I'm going to depend on somebody to tell me if there's anything in the chat. Nothing. Okay, thank you. Okay, so anything, any comments on my report on the Ready Keiki meeting or the things I am involved in? Yep. Okay, so now it's Yuko's turn, right? Okay. So do I stop share? Yeah. Got it.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Nice to see everybody in the audience here as well. So this is the report from our office for July. These are just some pictures of a bill signing that occurred, and Tara Castrovinci, our communication specialist, was able to represent us because I had a meeting scheduled at this time. And so here are some highlights of bills that were signed. So the first one is the one that was EOEL's priority, which would expand the pre-plus contracting model off of DOE campuses to other available public buildings. Also signed was the preschool open doors priority selection expansion. And so now applications received after the start of the fiscal year and are processed on a first come first served basis. So I'm going to report a little bit later on, but there's lots of funds available. So please let people know about the preschool open door subsidy.
I'm sorry, so SB 3087 was the priority for EOEL?
Yes. Then relating to education, so this is a harm to students registry for all early learning programs or schools and K-12 institutions. And so right now EOEL is currently working with HAIS and DOE to move that forward. Also relating to childcare, this is a bill that came through that expands the existing exemption from state law for US DoD certified childcare providers on federal property to now operating off of federal property. So if the board is not aware, Department of Defense childcare centers on base and currently on any federal property are not within the DHS licensing frame. And so now this expands it to also being available off of federal property as well. And then the last one that we wanted to highlight was relating to summer electronic benefits, again, to maximize participation in summer EBT for children, which is great because now they have access to healthy, nutritious food. So one of the things that we wanted to track, we've been tracking is the Hawaii birth rate. So this document comes partially from the roadmap, and it's going to lead into where we're going. But you could see the Hawaii birth rate. This is from Department of Health Statistics. So from 2018 to 2023. So we could see a declining birth rate in Hawaii. And at the time of our roadmap, we were looking at how many unserved children are there in Hawaii. So so when you look at children, there's also we're looking at cohorts. So from academic year to academic year, and also just the birth January to December year. So we're looking at what could be the high, what could be the maybe the minimum, the low side. And just also know that just because you're born here doesn't mean you stay here. And you could also be born elsewhere and move to Hawaii. So these are all just other things that we can keep into mind. But again, the goal is by 2027 to have enough seats and spaces for 50% of the currently unserved children in Hawaii. And then by 2032, 100%, we will have met the need for 100% of children who are currently unserved right now in Hawaii. And so there's going to be a couple of slides from the Lieutenant Governor's past meeting, as was referenced by Chair Yamashita. But these are the numbers generally that the Lieutenant Governor has been looking at that we use too. So again, that cohort of 3 and 4-year-olds, about 33,000, currently served by existing pre-K programs, about 18,000. One thing that's a little bit unique about Lieutenant Governor's her numbers is that she takes out this 20% where maybe family might be available and able and willing to take care of their children. As written right now in Act 46, EOEL does not necessarily have that 20% pull out. So we are still striving for the 100%, the 50 and the 100% as is designated to us. But for the most part, up until that point, we are very much aligned. And so that's why we work together. And so we have roughly about 88,000 unserved keiki. So when we're thinking about how many rooms is that? So when you divide it by 20, it's about 405 classrooms. So this is our collective goal. Well, let me go back. So our early learning board roadmap was a roadmap that the early learning board co-created with members of the community, members of the board, members of EOEL, and spoke about how are we going to actually achieve this together? What is it going to take? And so when we look at the early learning board's roadmap, there are four specific sections and that's what I reference when I do my reports right now. I'm referencing the early learning board roadmap. That's what was asked of me. So when I spoke with Chair Yamashita, it was a request to me that I report according to the early learning board roadmap. And then I also look at the whole early learning system as a whole, because some parts they fit and they align, but some of it's a little bit broader than what's stated in the roadmap. And I want to make sure I talk about this. So that's just some context. And so that's why I brought us back to this page, because this is a snapshot straight from the roadmap. So one of the expansion items is workforce development and support. And so under action item 1, so what's really neat this year is that EOEL is going to have our first 2 Hawaiian language public pre-K programs. And one of the things that EOEL wanted and needed to do in order to support workforce development is to be able to figure out how do we create community for our new EOEL public pre-K classrooms, because we only have 2. So they don't have this large cohort like the rest of the English language early learning classrooms. And so how do we kind of create that? So what EOEL did was we contracted the Islander Institute to help facilitate a Hawaiian language program retreat. And it was held at Kahuku Ranch, which is Kamehameha property. So thank you so much, Kamehameha, for permitting us to stay at this beautiful, beautiful location. And in creating this, I took a look at who should we invite. So I wanted to invite as many Hawaiian language early learning programs and supporters that I knew of. So we invited Ahapuna Leo, Kahua Baiola from UH Hilo, the Office of Hawaiian Education out of the Department of Education, Kamehameha Schools, the Charter School Commission, charter schools that run Hawaiian language preschool already, charter schools that are Hawaiian culture focused. We invited our EOEL Hawaiian language pre-K sites, although they couldn't come because there's a conflict with the DOE. We invited Kulaniakea, Hanaiaulu, and Koiha'o church school. And so most were able to be represented. And we also know it was a very busy time. It was FestPac time. It was also lots of conference time. And we actually started on the Kamehameha holiday. So I was really grateful for our staff to be able to give up that holiday to spend time here. And one of the really neat things here that we worked on is what is the timeline? What has it looked like from the start of, well, there was a lot that happened before 1978, but starting from 1978, what is the evolution of Hawaiian language early learning in Hawaii? And so EOEL is not yet on here, but it was a really great co-constructed opportunity together. And what we were looking for again is support. What we were looking for is, I guess, perspective, and to be able to create a community for our new programs and the teachers and the workforce that are going to be. Going along with workforce development, the University of Hawaii just announced the Early Childhood Education Graduate Certificate. So what this is for are currently licensed teachers in the Hawaii Department of Education. So that's one of them. So for example, I am an elementary licensed teacher. So if I wanted to teach in EOEL classroom, I would be considered NHQ or not highly qualified because it's not on my license. So this is an option to add that field to my license. But people can also take this 18 credit course, of course, for professional development and also non-licensed purposes. We also wanted to highlight now that our early childhood educator stipend is open and available for everybody. The deadline to apply for fall term is July 15. So if you know of anybody, we've heard from some folks who need additional professional development and learning related to accreditation. Or we've heard people who want to increase their credentials. It's a really great time to apply. Deadline for fall is July 15th, so please get the word out about that. Another thing for workforce development, because before we had the stipend program, you know, people also join the field from many different places, and sometimes it could be prohibitive at some point. But I wanted to let you know that the US DOE is looking at wanting feedback about extending public service loan forgiveness to early childhood educators. And so the comment period is open through July 22nd. So if you're interested in providing feedback so that they can better understand the operational aspects of potentially expanding public service loan forgiveness, please take a look at the QR code, or you can look at the link to the slides and just click on it and you can get to the comment page. So we were looking at, again, action item number 2 is addressing facilities for early childhood education programs. And I wanted to highlight again, our bill relating to early childhood learning. We know that securing facilities is sometimes challenging for community-based providers. And so this is solely for community-based providers. And so we're taking a look at areas of need and areas of opportunity. And then again, the expansion of facilities or the expansion of care is that Department of Defense providers can now operate off of federal property on state property. Or maybe even in personal homes. It's just off of federal property. Again, so preschool open doors. So this is funding for the early care and education system. A tremendous amount of money for preschool open doors and expanded a selection and also first come first served basis. And so one of the things I wanted to highlight, this came from a slide that was at our Lieutenant Governor's Ready Kiki meeting, is that previously there was 12 million committed to preschool open doors. And this increased it to 50 million. And historically, yes, 50. And so historically, maybe 5 million was administered. And now, like after this first period, they've already committed 25 million. So updating the federal poverty level guidelines, expanding to 3-year-olds. Obviously, we can see that families are very appreciative of this. We also have like a whole another 25 million to go. So please let people know about this opportunity for them. And preschool open doors is also helping with increased enrollment. So the enrollment for preschool open doors was 666 to 816, and now up to 1,542. So we hope that our community providers are able to see the benefit of this change in preschool open doors administration. Here is the application slide. You can go to if you go to patchhawaii.org, it'll appear right there. We had a detailed report from Kauai and Chair about addressing program quality improvement and maintenance. So again, the early care and education workforce symposium. And you can see a picture of Dr. Terry Locke on the left and Dr. Ann Douglas on the right. And one of the highlights that I came away with was her spirit of curiosity and innovation and feeling like you can be a change agent. So those first 4 parts are directly related to the roadmap, but I wanted to step back just a little bit and look at just the broader early learning piece, even though it was a little bit a part of that. But this is just a little bit aside that's not necessarily directly in the roadmap. So one of the things that I'd like to highlight are that there are a lot of innovative pathways for expanding access to early care and education. So we can see these opportunities here. So this was also reported at our most recent meeting with our Lieutenant Governor. So we know that Bezos Academy is looking at 2 free full-day classrooms, and these rooms will serve all their meals, breakfast, lunch, and a take-home dinner. They're looking at public libraries having 2 classrooms each at Pro City and Waikoloa. They're looking at 3 modular classrooms at Imiloa Astronomy Center to enhance Hawaiian language pre-K. Kapolei Village Parkway, we reported on this before. It comes through PACT. So PACT is the first state charter preschool only charter. And so they will have 4 classrooms at 20 seats each, and that's anticipated to open in January. And then the UH Manoa Children's Center with 130 new pre-K seats. And so one of the other things that I also wanted to highlight when we're just talking about public pathways is EOEL's role in part of this. So back in 2018 and 19, EOEL had 26 rooms. And then you can see it increased to 27, then 37, 49. And at the start of this next school year, we will have 92. So in a short amount of time, we have been able to open up 55 new classrooms.
So how many will be served in 92 classrooms?
Sorry.
That 20 seats for
Roughly 20 seats is
Okay.
about 1,700. While EOEL does not have to be licensed by Department of Human Services, we choose to follow as closely the DHS guidelines. And so we work right now, these are renovating existing DOE public schools. And so they're all configured differently and the sizes are different. So some are very small on neighbor islands and some are a little bit larger. But our max is 20 per room.
and the numbers of those rooms and the locations, are they listed on the EOEL site?
So the locations are on our website,
Okay.
yes. And you can see it where, if you wanted to apply for public pre-K, it'll say list of participating schools and it's all right there. And then again, for student safety relating to education, again, establishes the harm to students registry. One thing that I want to highlight for the board, and something that I think is important for the board to know and to think and consider, is that this bill says relating to education. And so when it's related to education, this includes HAIS, DOE, EOEL, and charter schools. This harm to students registry does not include anything under DHS because it's classified as childcare. And so I think that that's something that the board needs to know and just to understand about the harm to students registry. So it's called relating to education, and this is what it is right now.
Yeah, and I think it brings out that the terminology can be challenging. And from what I understand, it's called childcare because the federal funding stream, CCDFs and CCDBG, Child Care Development Block Grant Fund, Child Care Development Fund. That's what it's named. Okay, so it's according to the funding stream. I think that we as a board would understand that it is education, as you've stated in other meetings, it is education, but I think we all need to understand that we have to look at where the money comes from to understand why it's being called that. And that we can have a more expanded definition, but Yuko brings out an important point in statute though, because it is what it is. we need to be clear. So does that make sense? We need to look at the funding streams. That is a thing that, I know that has been worked on, that we don't supplant funding, because we have federal funding, we have, we have so many funding streams, and how, as a board, do we support that more coordination of that, so that we're not supplanting funding, we're not displacing a Head Start program, because the income limits are so similar that, oh, all the Head Start families might be going there. So then that diminishes the Head Start population, and a program loses federal funding. And that's kind of silly. So how, so let's think about how we can create policies or procedures or mechanisms that will help us encourage, our role is to encourage the collaboration and coordination. I think those funding streams are really key. We don't want to lose any of that funding. We don't want to tell the feds, we don't want to be called childcare, so no, we don't want CDF. No, we want all of it. We just have to be really, really clear. So yeah, thank you, Yuko, for that.
Steve has his hands up.
Should I keep?
Yeah, keep
going?
Sure.
So for health, mental health and nutrition, I wanted to highlight again that summer electronic benefits transfer for children program that we had mentioned earlier. And then other systems updates. So you can come up here so that we can talk to you, but while Ephraim is coming up here, we were able to welcome 6 new early learning state office teachers to the team. One came back from being barred out to the DOE and came back again. But we're really happy to have these new team members on board. They were able to support UH this summer, their summer institute. Currently, they're getting ready, taking a look at who's going to be responsible for which schools, what does the onboarding look like, making introductions to school level leaders, visiting teacher induction programs that the DOE has, and kind of getting the feel for what's going on. And then I'd also like to introduce Ephraim. So I'm going to stop so that we can take a look at you, Ephraim. So Dr. Ephraim Schwab comes to us. His first day of work was on Monday, and he's already had 2 Head Start meetings already. And so we're really happy to have him, but I'd like for him to introduce himself.
Yeah, it's great to be here with the board. Thank you for welcoming me here. I grew up here in Hawaii. I'm a Kahuku grad up on the North Shore, and I went off to school at Point Loma and National University, and then went to UH Manoa, and went to HBU, and went to Baylor. I've been all across the board in my academic journey, but I'm also a father, a husband. I have 2 children, and the mission is meaningful here, and so I hope to learn from all of you, being that I'm kind of new to the space. My previous position was with UH West Oahu, and I was a distance education specialist stationed on Kauai, and our job was to create pathways for our community college students to achieve their 4-year degrees without having to leave their island. And that's one of the things when we talk about workforce development, if we can, tap into those resources and our students can stay on the neighbor islands and still get these degrees and become qualified, I think that would really help us out. But yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. So thank you for welcoming me.
Thank you. Thank you. And that was our last. Stephen?
Stephen.
Hi, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, so on the registry where it says pertaining to education. So is there any appetite by DHS or anyone else to fix the statute?
So in my conversation, I have not had that conversation with the Department of Human Services. I just know that when we were testifying at the ledge, at some point in time, there were some attorney general comments that said that because it's pertaining to education, it does not involve the Department of Human Services or something to that effect because it's deemed as childcare.
Yeah, well, I think that's a discussion worth having, whether, because what we don't want, right, is somebody having, being fired from EOEL for something and then popping up in a private preschool that's funded with preschool open doors or whatever it is, right? Like I mean, I'm glad that this statute passed, but maybe there's further refinement that can be done if we all work together on it.
Yeah, thank you.
I did want to ask a question, Nicole, about the 20% that LG has, where she assumes that families can take care or choose to keep their child out of a program. But EOEL is not using that. How about FCIL or Family Child Interaction Learning Programs? Are those, because I would think that families that engage in FCIL would be part of that 20% that the LG is looking at. So,
Yeah, it could, yeah, they could be, right, because
Yeah.
I think what her message and the whole Ready Caking message is that we're not trying to mandate preschool.
Right.
Nobody's mandating preschool. We're saying that there will be a spot for your child if you want and need preschool. That's what that is. But there are also people who opt out of sending their children
Right.
to preschool, and maybe they might get support from a family child interaction learning program. Maybe their family could be a retired educator. Maybe it's a
right,
whomever, whatever it might be. So it's not that we don't align in that way. It's just that in Act 46, it says 50% of the currently unserved and 100% of the currently
Okay.
unserved. And
So-
it's not charged to the LG, it's charged to us.
right.
You know, so we
So
are.
no matter what, regardless of the 17 to 20% who keep their babies at home,
Mhm.
the EOEL will be required to provide
Yes,
50% of the seats in 2027 for all 3 and 4-year-olds and 100% in 2032 for all 3 and 4-year-olds, right?
yes, so not necessarily EOEL has to provide it.
Right.
That anybody out there can provide
Oh,
it.
right, that's right.
So that's
Right.
where those innovative pathways come in. That's where the increase of preschool open doors comes in and what have you.
So you could count the FCILs in that,
For us.
that they are being served.
So that's a really good question because we're actually having that conversation right now because our first Act 46 report is. due. And so we're trying to say like, who is it? And so EOEL is working with Department of Human Services and Department of Education and and charter schools and getting all of this together. So we are going to look at FCILs and the number of children.
Okay, and do you have somebody from the FCILs? Because the FCILs are largely funded by Native Hawaiians. So maybe pulling somebody in from that sector would be good. I mean, that would give us a more realistic picture. And you're not killing ourselves. I mean, we're including everybody, we're including all of the programs that are out there. Are there any other questions from the board? Online?
When is the Act 46 report due? And is that to the legislature?
It is, yes.
When is that due?
End of
By
August.
the,
First one.
end of this August. Okay.
I have a quick question on workforce updates. How has staffing been for the 44 classrooms? Are we close to open all of those classrooms and we're ready to go?
Yeah, so good question. So yes, all 44 will open. So what's happening right now so some of the challenges that we are experiencing right now are the communication between. We got the positions in and we put them in a long time ago. But then the state has to communicate down to the districts have to talk to the schools, and then the positions have to be posted. So we've had interesting inquiries like, how come that school got their position posted but not us? And we don't post positions. So we're like, you have to go and talk to so-and-so. Or, okay, we have this many kids, now we can try to post for our educational assistant positions. Like, so it's a very interesting things that people hear because those messages have never been delivered or re-delivered by our office. It's not, there's a huge volume of people right now, so there's a lot of coordination across like all the whole islands, all across all the islands. And so those are many different CASs, many different pros, many different, systems that are working right now, but everybody is posted now. Right, so everybody's posted now, but some people got a very late start to the game. So for schools that chose for some reason not to post those, let's say, an EA position at this time, and they're still in recruitment, we told them fill to 10 first, because the 1-to-10 ratio. And once they get that other person on board, then they can continue to fill after that. Just so that we make sure that we don't overfill without ensuring the hiring of the other person. So we know that that is something that's going on out there, but we've been working with state and district and schools to close that gap on wherever that miscommunication is coming from, because I've been CC'd on everything that has come out of state down to district, so I don't really know where that disconnect is.
Does EOL communicate directly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's part of our onboarding process. So, because the
Yeah,
turnaround's been a little bit quicker, so we do have onboarding.
Okay,
It's been like, so usually what happens is that EOEL kind of like, sometimes when you hear information, it like doesn't really, you have to hear it more than once. And sometimes like a question might come up a little bit later. And so, so even though we did our onboarding with our schools, when you actually have to implement, or it's time to actually put it into practice, this is where, sometimes there's a little bit of, challenging practice, and trying to understand like what was that was said versus what I actually have to do. And so we're working on that. But another good thing about that is, we've been working on the DOE side to also assist with the inputting of the information when children are actually registered. And because sometimes maybe they're not checking that they belong to EOEL or, what have you. So when they pull the data, it's not necessarily clear. So there's a lot of moving pieces in terms of from the point of application to actual enrollment. There's a lot in between.
so you mentioned about those that haven't hired the EA stop enrolling at 10, but they're not opening a classroom with 10 kids in one.
They will.
Mhm.
Yes, because
And one
it's funded.
teacher
Yes.
and 10
Yes.
children, and
Sure.
somebody's crying,
3 and 4.
and somebody gotta go bathroom. And you need at least 2 people.
Yeah.
So are they gonna, for me, this is a real health and safety issue, so there has to. So maybe this is something as a board we can think about and encourage that. For a classroom of 3 and 4-year-olds to open, there has to be at least 2 staff.
Minimum 2. Yes.
You cannot realistically have 1 person with 10 children starting school. Oh my gosh,
And are the bathrooms within the classroom?
right?
It has to be next to, I've heard, I apologize. When they opened preschools previously in EJ's term, the bathrooms were not in the classroom. They sent 3-year-olds by themselves. 4-year-olds. It was, and that's why it didn't continue. So
So,
minimum 2 staff, you're correct.
yeah, so,
Yeah.
if it's there needs to be 2 staff because it is
Just to
health and
let you know,
safety
the
issue.
biggest issue in private preschools, all preschools today, is getting substitute teachers. So if that 1 staff is out, will the DOE staff it with an elementary teacher? And that's the issue too. You can imagine. Anyway.
Yeah, so,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's hard.
Yeah.
Staffing is hard.
yeah. 3 and 4-year-olds are hard. Yeah, go ahead.
Does a starting preschool teacher in a public preschool start at the HSTA starting teacher salary?
Yes, so if they are a licensed teacher, they will start at a licensed teacher rate. If they are not a licensed teacher and they hold a permit, they will start at an instructor rate. Yeah, and instructors are not eligible for a tenure. It's a year-to-year term. And they have to renew their.
Any other questions from the room or online? I will open up for public comment. Again, 2-minute, a 2-minute maximum for public comment. Anybody? Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Jordana,
I just have a quick
can you speak loudly?
Sure. This is just a quick comment on the registry. So to Stephen's question, and DHS did submit testimony methods during the legislative session to include language in the bill that would allow the to share the registry with other agencies, and that language was in the version of the bill. So DHS, at least the theory, should be able to access that information. If there is an employee that was found to have been warnings being put on the registration. So it wouldn't be like a preschool program. If they conduct an investigation, they would go on the registry. The language does explicitly state that it's employees of the DOE private schools. But that other departments should have access to the information that's on the registry. That will be helpful.
So maybe that group that is working on the bill can work on that procedure for.
Yeah, I think it's
for
up to
DHS license.
Yeah, to make that determination, but what's enacted in law is that the DOE does have to share that information out to partners.
Thank you.
So that was, I believe, those amendments were stemmed from DHS's testimony.
Okay.
To be sure they have access to that.
Okay, thank you. Does that help, Stephen? Could you hear?
It was a little choppy, but I think I got the idea. I think I understood that it is currently possible to share that registry
Yeah.
information.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Jordana.
I don't know, that might have been them. I don't know whether that was just my audio or whether the other folks online was similarly choppy.
You know, the microphone is a little bit far away. I think I'm gonna ask people who are on the outside to maybe come closer. That might be a way to address it. Anything else? Any other? Lauren said it's very choppy for her too, so I think it will have, if you guys have a comment, those of you who are sitting inside can come closer because the mic is over here. Okay, we'll move on to the next thing. So now I gotta figure out, hey, how do I get that to? Okay. Nope. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna start sharing. Oh, thank you. Sure. Okay, so where am I? I wanted, yeah. I don't know what happens with technical issues. Well, thank you, Kevin. He's doing that. On behalf of my husband, my last name was Higa. That was easy, okay? So he prefers that our last name be pronounced Yamashita, like no more the I, okay? And here's a funny story. When UH first started doing emails, they gave me a username of my last name, yeah, with the A cut off. Okay, picture that.
Oh,
So I call my husband, I go, you know what, you want to give me this username of Yamash? And he was like, no. You guys. So anyway, so Yamashita is what he would prefer. So I can go home and tell him I did announce to everybody it's pronounced Yamashita. Because he knew he's a luthier. He knew of a guitar maker, Sakishita, on the mainland, and guess what people called him? Yeah. So okay. Mahalo, Yuko, and I think you can see in Yuko's report that there is the EOEL part and the coordination and a lot of that information shown. So I really appreciate that, and I think we need to pay attention to that, and again, figure out how we can continue to Yeah, go ahead.
I just, I was wondering if we could also see the bills that you were advocating for that did not get passed. I'd like to see what. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So so we have we have like a whole tracker sheet that we used.
Oh, you had a tracking sheet, right, of
We do.
bills, yeah.
And so how would you like this shared?
Yeah, how do we do it in a manageable way, right? Because isn't it aren't there a lot of bills? Or,
Yeah, so we have it organized by tabs. And then we talk about like whether we submitted testimony and I kind of write down like, when did I do it?
Okay, so I think, your question is what?
I'd just like to see all of the bills that we have, or EOEL has testified on or supported, or even opposed, and, just in case.
Yeah.
I mean, to know what the priority.
Right, and I appreciate your interest in legislation, because that is gonna be a big piece of what we're gonna be considering. So how would be the best way to share it?
So I don't mind giving people access to the doc. It's a Google sheet that we use.
Could you?
I could, if you want me to pull it up, I can just show you what it looks like.
Or, well,
Is it necessary for it to be a public document? I mean.
yeah, can it
it's
be
public
in the,
notice Anyway.
can it be in the shared drive, the
The boards.
yeah, the board shared drive?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, why don't we do it that way? Is that okay?
So just so that people know, you can still see what's behind the grayed out sessions. Just so that you can see what this looks like. So there's some grayed out sections.
Yeah.
Just so that you can see, and that means they didn't pass.
Yeah.
So these are the deadlines that happen, who it's relevant for, and what have you, all the way to the end of the session. So I can put it into the board's folder.
Okay, here I go again. Oh, there it is. Woohoo, okay. So, I wanted to, because this is my first meeting as chair. And it's a 3-year term, that's been clarified. Somebody asked me, so did you have to sign something saying you're gonna serve as long as Bob? I was like, no. It's a 3-year term. So, I did want to make clear, and a lot of this comes from Ann Douglas. Dr. Ann Douglas said, Kawi is talking about having an inquiry mindset, and I appreciate the questions that have come forward so far, and that's what I think is important for us to have as a board. And come informed, what I would like to do is to have this once a month time really so we can use it for discussion and questions as it has been today, and decision making. And so I used to do this with my faculty senate. My academic senate had written reports submitted beforehand and really encourage board members to read them before the meeting. Because we're all intelligent people, we can read, we can absorb the information, so we can come with questions and comments and, ideas. Okay, so that's what I'm hoping to move towards, and I've learned we have 48 hours before the meeting to post the board packet. So that's kind of going to be my deadline. So I'm going to be asking for, if there are committee reports, that they put in the board packet so that we can all read them and be informed. So we can use our time together well. County, now, again, we have county representatives now. So this is a new, I'm sorry, I'm looking at Joni. Oh, Joni is okay. Now that we have county representatives, I think that as I am one, we need to be informed about the early learning initiatives in our own counties. So I would encourage Joni, and Alana is not feeling well today. And I heard Alana got married, so I'll tell her congratulations next time we see her. But to really connect with the county coordinators, and Honolulu City and County has Jordana, who is here, so you can connect with Jordana. And then we have higher education faculty that can be resources. So really, you know, I think we have this potential. We have good people in the room. We have the people to make a difference, to be agents of change. And we can do it. It comes down to relationships. Yeah, it comes down to how we respectfully relate to each other, ask questions, maybe challenge, but challenge respectfully and be open. So I think, you know, we're a small state. We can get this together. We have had a lot. We are doing a lot. How can we continue to make it better, more coordinated and collaborative? And it does come down to relationships. So how we build those relationships, I think, is really important, and how we continue those relationships. So that's what I want to encourage, that we ask questions, that we build those relationships. And I think that as a state, we can move together. It really comes down to the people. You know, when I look at other states and how they've been able to move, it comes down to people. It's not a department. It comes down to specific people who have passion to continue to pursue, to just keep on the work. And, you know, me and Christina, we've been doing this for a long time. And, you know, we're still in. And we have seen it change. And I think that this is, we're going to continue to build on this foundation that has been built. And I want to encourage that. So we want to shift in our thinking from not only seeing early educators, thank you, Kawi, but ourselves as agents of change, but really seeing early educators not as objects of change, but that they are agents of change also. So this is a key part of what Ann Douglas is talking about, key part of what we're hoping to build. The Act 46 program quality improvement on is seeing people on the ground as agents of change. They know how, they have ideas, if they're encouraged, of how they can solve a problem in their classroom, maybe in their school, in their program. So how, if we can really get our mindsets to be curious, inquisitive, supportive, and agents of change. Again, this is from Ann Douglas, and I've just latched onto it. I think we can really move forward in big ways. And so for the board functioning, because there has been a lot done, and what we're trying to do, and mahalo to Lane, because he put these draft bylaws together, and I was so happy because I have worked on bylaws together, and I was like, oh my gosh. But he actually has a draft that I was able to comment on, and we've been going back and forth on. And I think as we get that solidified, it'll go to governance committee and will eventually come to the board. But you can always, you know, we'll keep the board informed on how it is, but it's kind of codifying what the procedures that have already been happening and are in place, okay? Any questions or comments on that? I have something else. Questions, comments? Okay, let's have a break. 10 minutes. Am I on time? No? I think I'm kind of on, no, we're not on time. We're not on time. Okay, let's do 5, well, we need a break, 10 minutes, please, 10 minutes.
So. But. And so I don't think she said this is over. Like, okay, there's somebody absence. Students. But this is. What has happened is again. It goes, so what is relevant, and what is relevant, is what's relevant, what's relevant, for this and what it is. And then the wording that I was thinking is that, okay, at this and we didn't do after this. So, yeah, and I took that, either take that on. Just a trust. Yes. Yeah, so we can do that. Or once it comes, yeah, once it gets serious, if it's right past, then we can. Okay. Yeah.
So. Also.
Thank you. Hey.
Yeah.
For
AGIS.
I mean, Robert, this is like a new PHS director. He's
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And he says he doesn't do that. But the reason we did that 6 years ago, they said, oh, we can't give you access to our database. You guys have access to it?
I don't, so. It's all opposite. So I think it's. She's written. So because I know. It's pretty happy. So that you guys.
Yeah, and we take everybody, all of our, go through the FBI.
I don't look at some. Between DOE and the DOE.
Okay.
Sites, because I know that. And so, you know, the public is actually inclusive, it's starting. So it's. Will be. But they can. Because. So that's, yeah, so then we can try like, let's. Loosen it, this is,
I'm gonna invite you next week. Just today, we're trying to set up a meeting of about 10 HR officers, with a whole KS and stuff, because they're all saying, shit, how are we gonna do this? Because you've got, like, that's $2,000 as a per bed. It's just, yeah. Or contractor, only over there, construction pole, or then, or does it have to be a research?
Yeah, no, absolutely, so that's kind of interesting, right now, they have to go, they're taking like dollar payers, so maybe those can be, yeah, and then it's a somebody's that's. The parents are, but yeah, like. I mean, it's but it's also, but it is supposed to be. It's also nice. I wonder, like, if we needed this, that's like, if it's insurance, then like that's.
Okay, we're gonna get started again. We'll get started again, and I'm going to change the agenda around a little bit because I think I want us to get the voting items reviewed and voted on. So Rochelle, Dr. Rochelle Mahoy from DOE is acting for the governance committee. And Rochelle, I'm sorry, I didn't get a chance to tell you this because I just decided as I looked at the time that I wanted to really make sure we got it. So I'm gonna give it over to her. She's gonna give her report and ask for the votes.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the governance subcommittee, we met on Friday, June 21st to review specifically the roles and responsibilities of the Early Learning Board chairperson and vice chairperson, and also their term limits. And so really, the composition that due to the changes in the ELB board membership and their compositions, we suggested the following changes. And really, I think it should be in your board packet, our notes. And so really, and I'm just gonna, I put it in the chat. Really what it is there's, I believe, about 4 board members that have term limit 3 years. There are 4 that have 4 years and 2 that have, or a few that have 2-year term limits. And so really this is adjusting to that new composition. And so what's highlighted in red is just the change. And really the change is that the chair is selected by the majority of the voting members every 3 years. That was the original statement, but we added, or the term limit of the selected board member is less than 3 years, then they would have to vote for a new chairperson within, if it's shorter than 3 years. So it's just the or. Similarly, the vice chairperson would be selected by the majority of its voting members every 3 years, or if the term is less than 3 years, then sooner. So that's really the change on the term limits. So we would like, on behalf of the subcommittee, propose that change. So I think there needs to be a motion.
Yes, since it's coming for the committee, we just need a second to accept. It's coming from the committee.
So Rochelle is making the movement.
Yeah, it's
I'll
making the
second.
move, yes. Thank you. Are we seconded? Is there any discussion or questions? Hearing none? Okay, Rochelle, why don't you call the roll? I won't vote on this because we do have quorum. We have to, but we still have quorum, so we have, the other, we don't have Joni and Alana.
And Stephanie,
Stephanie, wait.
is Stephanie here?
Okay. Stephanie's not here. Oh, no, I have to vote because then I make quorum. So, okay. So no Alana, no Joni, no Stephanie.
Okay, so I will call off the names and you can say yay or nay. Starting with Kau'i Burgess.
Yes.
Okay. Cheryl Kudamat.
Yes.
Salma Gandhi.
Yes.
Lindsay Heathcock.
Yeah.
And last, Elaine Yamashita.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
So with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses, the motion is being passed.
It's passed. Mahalo, everybody.
The governance committee does have a another motion, and that is to We do have a chairperson selection process. And if you attended last month's meeting, it was demonstrated by announcing the upcoming chairperson selection. We gave a time frame. Matt Shim collected the nominations and then submitted the names. And then we did voting during the board meeting. The board chair was responsible for making sure that it was an agenda item, etc. What we are proposing is that the vice chairperson selection process mirror that same process as the chair process. So the chair will manage the vice chairperson selection process. Same thing, they would announce this vice chairperson process, define a time frame for the nominations, collect the nominations, submit names, and I'm summarizing it as it's in your packet. Submit the names for the nominations, and then following the election process, tabulate the votes and announce the results. So if there is, this is our proposal that the vice chairperson selection process mirror that of the chairperson. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Are we seconded? Any discussion or questions?
If there's no,
Yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
okay, if there's no discussions, we will go to a vote. I will call off the names. Kao-i,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Soma,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yeah.
and Elaine.
Yes.
So with 5 yeses, the motion does pass as presented.
No, so I'm hoping that next meeting, we can have Matt or Rochelle announce maybe the timetable as we did for the chair. And you can self-nominate for vice chair. That's one of the first things Bob told me, he said, I think you need a vice chair. And I was like, yes, I need a vice chair. So been thinking about that, okay? All right. Mahalo.
You.
Okay, let me go back to. I can remember what I did. Okay, now we're gonna go back to board responsibilities and committees. One of the things that was pointed out to me during the break, this comes from chapter 302L in the Hawaii Revised Statutes. And Jordana reminded me that the board, each of us should really go through that statute. You can find it online. And I was concentrating on the board responsibilities. However, that whole statute does have definitions that pertains to our discussion today. There's a lot of information there, so we as a board really need to be familiar with that chapter so that we know what already exists and what we are moving, how we can move things forward. Okay. So we have 4 major responsibilities, and as I started to look at this and thinking about the complexity and breadth of this field, it was like, how do we get everybody on the same page? And doing it by our responsibilities seemed to make the most sense. And it's kind of, there are a couple of things that are clearly responsibility or are handled currently by, we have 2 standing committees. But we need, in order to move the work forward, to figure out what other committees we need, okay? So for directing EOEL and how best to meet developmental and educational needs of children from prenatal care to entry into kindergarten. Currently, as a whole, that's kind of that's what we do. We listen to the reports, we can ask questions. If you have ideas on whether it should be done differently, please be thinking about that. The second responsibility is providing recommendations to the office on improving the quality, availability, and coordination of early learning programs. And currently, this is a responsibility of the whole board. But my question is, and this is as Lena and I are kind of going through the bylaws, does this need to be assigned to a committee? So right now, what's suggested is the Early Learning System Performance Committee. I don't know if that's the correct, the best name, or if, that's what it should be. Is that broad enough? Is that help encompass that recommendation? It's kind of a big, these first two are really big. These are systems questions, and that's what we need to address, are these systems issues. So let me go on to the next one as we continue to think about it. And I'm not expecting that we make decisions today unless there's really a clear consensus. I really want to just put it forward and get everyone's to think about it, get your manao, and then we need to really start solidifying and getting these committees going. Governance is already going, okay? But finance needs to kind of be reconfigured or needs to get going again. And where else? Okay, so let me see the third. Okay. The third responsibility is promoting collaboration across agencies and stakeholders serving young children. And I think we saw in Yuko's report that she is reporting on collaborations. But currently, is that only Yuko's responsibility? Does this need to be assigned to a committee? Again, here's that it could be a subcommittee of this suggested early learning system performance. Initial thoughts, questions. I really don't know. I really want, looking for you guys to think about it. So let's keep going.
I wonder
okay.
if some of that, or maybe a lot of it, might be done through the legislative process. I know that there was one bill that encouraged working with, or was it? I can't remember exactly what it was. I wasn't following the bills this year, but just from today, I heard one of the conversations and it sounded like it was an ask. Is it DHS that was asking for access to information? And those kinds of things, that's part of collaborating, having information available and having access to those types of information so that we can all work together. So some of those things can be done through the legislative process, depending on bills that are work, or it might be something that if there's a subcommittee created around legislation that, this board could think about potentially drafting thoughts or a bill or language for a bill to push, encourage, urge collaboration between entities. I'm sure it's already been thought about, but just my thoughts.
Yeah.
So, that's one way. So I'm not sure if it's. I don't know if it, my point being, I'm not sure if it's necessary to set up a subcommittee specific for that. Maybe it is. I mean, it's very important that we do it, super important.
Yeah.
And then have, yeah, I don't know. That was my reason was, I'm not sure if
Right, I appreciate
subcommittee is
hearing
necessary,
that.
but
I know that last session, the board did have, a framework for how they looked at priorities. And that's how they chose the bills they were going to support. But I think a legislative subcommittee is a good idea and I think we're allowed to do that. I'm asking Ronald. But, what do you guys think? And people online.
Yes, what is the, like, I can imagine some, but what are the benefits of a subcommittee versus the whole board? Like, what's for the goals of having subcommittee?
So if we have a standing committee, those committees can have, I believe they can have members that are not on the board to inform their work. They're not necessarily under sunshine law, like we're under sunshine law right now, but the committee reports come to us and then we vote on them. So there are some, it
so
can be a
sunshine
small
law is a
group.
big difference.
Yeah.
If we have a PIG,
right,
we are
permitted.
not required to follow the sunshine law for a permitted interaction group. That could be a PIG. It could be a subcommittee though, where we still do need to ensure that only two or one board members in the group with community members who can advise or even employees of EOEL who can share their mana'o on what should be the priorities for the year. But that's the big difference, I believe, is the sunshine law.
And I think I think this is my understanding, we have two standing committees. So that's the governance that Rochelle reported on, and we have finance. Finance was headed by Justina Acevedo Cross, and Stephen Schatz was also on that committee, and it was Yuko and Bob. So Stephen, what are you thinking about finance? Are you gonna stay on finance?
Yeah, I'm happy to stay on.
Yay, thank you. And we do need more members for finance. So please be thinking about, yes, Phil.
I have an associate's degree in accounting, so I'd be happy.
We would be good.
Oh, okay. Wow, okay. That's great.
But I canceled that out with a bachelor's in philosophy. So
Okay, so then we have those two standing committees, and I'm thinking maybe we need at least a third standing committee. Is it the legislative committee? Is this early learning system performance committee? Or should legislative come under this early learning system performance? Or should legislative be a separate standing committee? You know, we could have four.
Be whatever we.
Yeah, so
decide. I think it could certainly, legislative discussions can be within the early learning systems committee. I think that definitely would work, being the system is the state system that we're looking at, so greatly impacted by the legislative process.
and what I've observed over the last couple of years is sometimes things get proposed in legislation And then a department might say, you know what, we'd rather address it in a different way through our own procedures and stuff. So at least it surfaces the issue. And again, if we want to be agents of change and we want to move and coordinate our system more in a keep coordinating more visibly and I guess, you know, how do we, what do you guys think? So I'm kind of hearing there's a committee on legislation, so it could be a separate committee or it could be a subcommittee of this early learning performance.
What is the name of that one you're talking about? Early learning performance?
Early learning system performance.
System.
Is that, is,
System.
yeah, is that a name that makes sense? Is there a different name that we should? So it would be.
Elaine,
Yeah,
you're,
sure.
for the system performance one, what you're talking about is the coordination responsibility that we have that is beyond EOEL, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
I would name it something like that, like coordination, like, because I think what the criticism, right, of both ELB and EOEL over the years has been that we're overly concerned with that which EOEL has direct funding and responsibility for and administration of. Now, that's not a criticism because, of course, the majority of what UCO is going to do is going to be what's funded. Right? But the statutory responsibility is broader than the like programmatically funded
Yes.
stuff. So that's the
Yes.
disconnect from my perspective. Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
Lauren has a suggestion in the chat that might work. And then the other thing I would say is like the legislative, if we're gonna do a committee that deals with legislation, I think the finance committee, when we stood it up, if I remember correctly, and I don't always remember correctly, it was to think about the both EOEL's budget, but also the legislative proposal and legislative asks. So that I wouldn't want to have like somebody talking about legislative requests and then somebody else talking about like then another committee finances. That's like a lot of what we were thinking about is, you know, at the end of the day, what are we asking for from the ledge? How much of it is funding and whatever. So I wouldn't want those to be two separate committees.
Okay. That makes sense.
I
And
agree.
yeah, and I appreciate that, the point you brought out, because yeah, EOEL is unique in that it has these programs to staff and stand up and monitor and has this responsibility for the system coordination. So it is those two two pieces that are kind of unique and, yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Okay, somebody. Lauren had something in chat. I can't see chat right now, right? Oh, okay. I still can see because my eyes are in.
Coordination committee. Oh, another name.
Early Learning Coordination Committee. You guys think about that.
Yeah, and then in that, if there is a committee like that, then we sort of have to be, that can't, I wouldn't think that would just be sort of volunteers. Cause what you need is coordination among the entities who are expected to collaborate, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it can't just be sort of, whether voting or non-voting, I mean, I think we might be talking about more of the non-voting members than the
Yes.
voting members in that case,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, definitely, yes. Yes. So for an early learning coordination committee, which would be largely the non-voting members because we as a voting members, we have different levels of expertise and knowledge in this field. And all of these departments and entities have their own knowledge and expertise. And, P20 has a PDG grant with EOEL, and there's all these intertwined initiatives that are happening. So maybe this coordinating committee or coordination committee would be made up of the non-voting members. I think as chair, I'm ex officio on committees. I think I have a vice chair, then that person can also share that duty.
So Elena, so I know nobody asked, but just to be clear for myself, although it's hard, I'm wearing a P20 shirt with a P20 background. I'm actually the president's designee. I'm
Oh,
the
that's right,
university representative in this
That's
particular context.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So sometimes I'll remind you all, and then sometimes you can remind me. But I
Okay.
just want to know, like, statutorily, I'm the president's designee, which could
Right.
change, right? We're gonna have a new president at some point soon.
Thank you for pointing that out. For this meeting, I'm gathering thoughts, suggestions, and hoping that you keep thinking about it. Let me go on to that fourth responsibility is appointing the director of the office and evaluating the director on an annual basis, and it's currently handled by the governance committee. So we have that handled. Bob told me that usually in August, the board fills out a evaluation, but really the voting members of the board, the other members could fill out maybe an evaluation, but the voting members are so new, we don't really have much context to be able to provide that kind of input. So I think I'll talk about it a little more with the governance committee, and we'll see how we handle that. But it is currently being handled. I think I had okay, here's the current committees. The governance, Matt Shim is chairing it. There's Rochelle, Dana Luca from DHS, Yuko, and myself. And then finance, so Steven said he'll stay on. And we need, oh, here, I had this question addresses, because currently I thought from what I was looking at, it was addressing finances of EOEL and ELB. And my question was exactly what Stephen pointed out, that it is to expand its scope to the system as a whole. So that committee can be working on that. So early learning system performance or early learning coordinating committee, be thinking about whether one of those would be preferable, and be thinking about how the legislative work would be coordinated, because it cannot happen in silos, or we do need to address it. So I'm gonna look back, but maybe other board members can remember how
Who's the
you
chair of the
guys.
finance committee?
Stephen, are you the chair? Or does Phil want to be the chair? We got Phil on the committee. Stephen, will you convene that committee? Or you got to think about it?
I can do the first one.
Okay,
I can do like a first meeting and then we'll go from there.
okay. That works. I know I have somewhere in my NASA papers the priorities, the legislative priorities that were used in the last session. So I'm wondering which committee that came out of, or was that the board as a whole? Do you guys remember? I think. Boy, you remember?
What was the
Remember?
process for deciding the priorities? Was it
Yeah,
equal
that's-
providing the
Yeah, I don't know.
recommendations and then the board approving?
That's why I'm asking.
Was that how it was?
Subcommittee in the larger board, I believe.
Subcommittee question. So there was so what subcommittee?
Oh, there
that?
wasn't the workforce subcommittee?
Was all of them all together. And then they brought it to the lecture.
Here, I found the framework of policy priorities for 23 to 24. It was according to the state plan building blocks. So that was a framework for the priorities, but it came from a committee.
All of the subcommittees, and then they brought the top to the larger board. The top priorities.
Oh, okay, so each committee looked at those building blocks, kind of proposed priorities, and then the board as a whole
Decided what.
decided on what the priorities, okay. So does that work as far, I appreciate the, Colleen, your interest in legislation, because I think that's, we need to have that focus as we go on. Okay, so at least we have some things to think about. I'm hoping that next time, oh wait, I still had another question, right? Previous ad hoc committee on early educator workforce equity submitted a report in December 2022 to the board, which resulted in the only current policy that I could find, which was 1/101 adopted by the board. And this policy was part of the basis, it looked like to me, for the framework for policy priorities. So should that subcommittee on early educator workforce equity, which really is looking at the whole workforce issue. I was talking to Christina. KCAA had 6 programs and now they're down to 3 because of staffing issues. So, you know, this is a very real issue. We have this workforce shortage. So could it be under this proposed early learning system performance or coordination committee? I mean, my personal opinion is that subcommittee is, or that information is important. I do, you know, when I think about the compensation design committee, design team that Terry Lack is heading, we could ask Terry to bring a report to us on what that design team is looking at, because they're looking at, you know, how do we get to a better place as far as compensation? We cannot do all the work. We got to coordinate and kind of make sure we know what's happening. So, you know, what I'm asking you guys to think about is what are the best ways to organize ourselves so that we can do that. Okay. Are there any more questions or suggestions? Try to summarize when we get to that part, okay? So I'm not asking for a decision, but please be thinking about this, and I'm hoping that maybe by next meeting, we can have a better idea of how we can organize and move forward. But at least we have 2 committees. We do have 2. And we did this. Okay, so I did have an item. I wanted to address that last month we had a request from a member of the public to add an agenda item. So this brought up an interesting issue, and when I talked to Yuko, she couldn't remember it having come up at all. So as I work with Lane, we're like, okay, we gotta figure out what that request to put an item on the agenda would look like. And it's kind of a balance of, I really want to respect and hear from the public, but we also have to make sure it aligns with what we're responsible for. And maybe it's a matter of, so for that particular question, it had to do with children with special needs and IDEA Part B, Part C. So I kind of initially kicked it to Matt and Keiko folks at Department of Health. And but we don't really have a procedure yet. So that's one of the things that Lane and I are kind of working on to figure out that balance. He kind of had proposed maybe people have to request in writing that an agenda item be put on the next meeting, and that the chair would have the responsibility of, or the sole discretion or whatever, I would get to decide. But I'm like, oh, I don't know if that's appropriate, that only I get to decide. I would have to ask other people and stuff. So anyway, we're still kind of working on that. So if you have any ideas about that, but I wanted to let the public know that we have it recorded in the minutes, and it brought up an important issue, and that issue itself is important, but we're still figuring out how do we address it. Okay. Any comments from my board members? Questions?
So, I'm sorry.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead. Your board member.
Say one more time.
Yes.
How are we gonna do this? We're gonna
I don't
discuss it at the next meeting?
You mean which the?
Are we
committee-
just discussing it now?
Or the.
Adding an agenda item from the
Okay.
public?
Yeah.
No,
Okay. Just.
I'm just wondering, because that was one of
Maybe-
my questions when I was watching. I mean, I didn't get a chance to sit in, so I watched them.
So if you, yes, let me know. So, you know, Lane and I can continue to work on,
Because I feel
yeah,
that it might be good for the chair to work on it, to determine with the deputy attorney general.
yeah.
To determine if it is an ELB kuleana or
Oh, that's an idea.
responsibility
Mhm.
to have a discussion about that, right? Like you had previously said. And then it could be added, and if not, it is not an item to be discussed by this board, but rather EOEL or another
Or
entity,
department, yeah.
then someone needs to, there needs to be a process for someone to get back to the person,
Yeah.
of the public and inform them. So when they make a request, it is good that we have some kind of request in writing, whether it be
Right.
through email or through handwriting, a letter that, so that we have a contact for that person.
Correct.
And we can then respond in the way that they've requested, whether it be through email or a letter, and let them know this is, we are not able to discuss it because it is not a kuleana of the board. However, we have determined, along with the Attorney General's office,
Mhm.
that it is a kuleana of so-and-so. And therefore, we recommend that you contact so-and-so. Here is their number, here's their name, here is their email address, and kokua the public that.
Yeah. I think that follow-up piece is really important. So yeah, that's a good reason to have it in writing.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Or is that too much?
Follow-up is good. I would also perhaps suggest if they have an agenda item and they come to the meeting before, that they can leave it as public comment at the end, perhaps to add for the next agenda for the following meeting. Because sometimes they may not be able to like shoot an email, or they have public comment at the end of all our ELB meetings. They can suggest if we can add an agenda item, or chair can determine, yes, it's relevant. If not, we can follow Cully's process and provide with a follow-up.
Okay, wait, I'm not. sure, understand when, actually, so we kind of changed the process of public comment to after each
Okay,
agenda
okay.
item. So does that change what you said?
No, because if they have an agenda item, say, related to a certain. A new agenda item related to a certain agenda item, for example, when we're talking about coordination, if they want an agenda item to be added to talk about FCILs being funded. They could maybe add it at the end of that component orally versus submitting via writing.
Orally, and then just somehow we gotta get their contact.
Yeah, and then we'll be able to see, because all the notes are.
The only pikia is that they would have to give their contact to the whole public, because everything stated within the meeting is
Is
public. So that's the only
Yeah.
thing I mean, I wouldn't want to be able to
Yeah.
have to do that. But
Yeah.
others may be okay with that.
Right, that's a good point,
So that's why I recommend somehow
in writing.
In writing.
that they provide it
Does
in
that make
email.
sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or
I'm just thinking the hot topics that come off the top.
Yeah.
Right,
Right,
They
that.
actually, they can mention
Sure
it.
that, because sometimes that's the good manao, that after the meeting, I'll show I forgot to email.
Mm, mhm.
Yeah.
Well, we meet every month.
And maybe there can be a place even on, our. Maybe at the bottom of each slide for the agenda that has the email to contact. So just, yeah. At the bottom, an email to contact the early learning board
Oh, okay,
to make
oh, okay,
requests.
okay,
Just, I mean, all you have
I
to, just the
see.
email. You don't
Yeah,
need to
yeah.
put, contact us to add an agenda.
yeah.
I mean, because that could get out of control.
Yeah. Right.
And that's something else we need to think
Yeah,
about.
so that was the balancing part that we were trying to figure out, so. Yeah, that's really helpful. So I'm hearing that it's important to have a written request. A suggestion is to put the email for early learning board at the bottom of slides. And I think we have an idea for how we can kind of move forward on this.
And then you may, if it starts to get out of, like, right now we have what?
Correct.
Right, and it's super simple for you to. I mean,
Yeah.
well, I'm saying it's super simple, I'm retired. But, on your way to the airport, you may be able to call the Attorney General's office and ask them, is this
Oh,
an item?
yeah,
that we should-" but then you might have
he sits in
15.
on meetings too. so-
Yeah, but you might have 15 requests, right?
15, you
No, I know, that's
No.
why I'm saying, it could get out of hand. All,
Yes, it could, Yes,
might
it
cut
could.
you, but
yes.
so you gotta think about, is that the best process? Should we have someone in charge of getting that email? I mean, but that's for later. We don't need to talk about that now. What
Okay.
time is it?
But that's good too. No, I really appreciate that. Good thoughts. Any other comments? From the board? How about or entertain comments from the public? I guess hearing none, and I don't see any. Right? I don't see any, right? Does gotta clarify because my eyes are old, right? Okay.
Does Ronald have? I just see he's unmuted.
Oh, Ronald, you have a comment?
No, I have no comment. I just wanted to thank you for a great meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let me review the agenda outcomes. What we did was the important thing was we passed 2 motions to amend the chair duties and terms, and then we accepted the vice chair duties and terms. We talked about how we could organize, excuse me. And one suggestion is early learning coordinating committee. We talked about and talking about how our legislation committee and how we coordinate within ourselves, this is a big coordination piece, and making sure we have finance and governance, and we're taking care of EOEL. And we also have ideas on how to handle or how to create a procedure to add agenda items at the public's request. Okay, so I think that's what we did. We had discussion on some items in UFO's report. And I really appreciate everybody's engagement and wanting to learn more. So this is a quote from Marie Curie, and I thought it went well with what we're trying to encourage, that you cannot hope to build a better world without improving the individuals. To that end, each of us must work for his or her own improvement, and at the same time, share a general responsibility for all humanity. Our particular duty being to aid those to whom we think we can be most useful. So, all of you guys for your service and your engagement. Our next meeting is August 8th. I will be presiding from Minneapolis because I'm going with EOEL staff and other people to the Build Conference on Quality Improvement. So that's something that we have been working on, and looking forward to that. So this meeting is adjourned. Okay.